Doom 2016 is one of those games I always heard good things about, but I never checked it out for myself, because I'm not really a shooter guy. When I saw it on sale for $2, I said, what do I have to lose? Well, turns out, even if you're not really into shooters, the game's damn fun, and it actually avoids a lot of the frustrations I've had with other shooter campaigns in the past. Because the game is an action-packed ride from start to finish, and it begins with one of the best introductory sequences I've seen in any action game. Because you start as the Doomslayer, without a suit, chained to a sarcophagus coffin, and ominously, zombies approaching. Of course, in classic Doomslayer fashion, he bashes its head against the coffin before shattering his chains and leaping out to grab a nearby gun. Turns out, being chained up with a bunch of zombies approaching, not too big of a deal if you're the Doomslayer. And this is when you get to control the game for yourself, with a pistol, and just start blasting through those demons. Then in the next room, you get your classic Doomslayer suit. And of course, some boring blah blah from a random corpo guy. The Doomslayer was not too interested in listening, and quite frankly, I wasn't either. Because at that point, I was excited to get back to blasting stuff. And I appreciate the gameplay-first approach that continues throughout the early parts of the game. There are a couple of tutorials with actual pop-ups, but for the most part, you're learning by playing. You get a gun, you'll learn how to use it. You see a demon, you'll learn that you should probably shoot it in the face. And so, before you know it, you've got a shotgun, and you're ready to rip and tear your way through the rest of the game.
I'm willing to take full responsibility for the horrible events of the last 24 hours, but you must understand, our interest in their world was purely for the betterment of mankind. Everything has clearly gotten out of hand now, yes. But it was worth the risk, I assure you.
Now, there's a lot of things I liked about Doom 2016, but if I had to pick one that stands above the rest, it's the combat. Between the different guns, the chainsaw, the glory kill system, you are heavily incentivized to get up close and personal with most of the demons as you blast them to bits, though maybe not if you're using a rocket launcher. The weapons using a shared ammo system means you can either swap between all the different guns as you prefer, or stick with your favorite ammo type and just kind of use the gun for that. Throughout its runtime, the game doesn't introduce all that many different enemies, but each of them are not only visually distinct, but you have to deal with them in a variety of different ways. For the Hell Knights, they want to get up close and personal before slamming you with melee attacks, so this is one of the few enemies that I found myself continually running away from and often kiting. On the other hand, the flying cacodemons float just out of reach and shoot at you. Most of the time, they do have a pretty nasty bite attack. When they're floating, that makes them the perfect stationary target for something like the Gauss cannon. And then there are the imps, who are constantly running away and lobbing fireballs, so naturally I ran up close to hit them with a super shotgun. Then you've got the glory kill system. As you shoot demons, your guns stagger them. That's where they have the little blue outline. At which point you can either continue shooting them, since they're a fish in a barrel at that point, or get up close and personal, save your ammo, and get a brutal glory kill to regain some health. If you happen to find the Berserk power-up, by the way, it lets you just constantly smash through foes with your bare fists, and it feels like you are constantly chaining glory kills while destroying everything you fight and feeling pretty invincible. Though, just don't test that by jumping off a cliff, because fall damage is pretty darn dangerous. And the best part about this, whenever my health got low, I wanted to run towards the demons rather than away. What happens when you run out of bullets? Well, to be honest, this didn't happen all that often, because there's a pretty generous amount of health, shield, and ammo pickups in each of the arenas. But it can happen. No problem though, because I'll let you in on a little secret. In addition to all the guts, there's a ton of bullets inside all the demons, and all you need to do to open up this gory treasure chest is grab your chainsaw. And hey, sometimes you just don't want to deal with a demon, and you can take your chainsaw out and use it for that as well. Or you can just use your big fucking gun and nuke everything on the screen. That's pretty fun too. Another thing I appreciate about Doom is the way they handle boss fights. Because you don't fight that many bosses, but each one is challenging, just enough to be memorable without feeling like a bullet sponge. Now, a lot of your heavier weapons, like the Gauss cannon or the rockets, do take a significant chunk off their health bar. Or you can tear through their health using something like the chain gun, at least until you run out of ammo, because you probably will run out of ammo. And if you have the BFG loaded, well, might as well fire it, because that's going to do massive damage to the boss, and it might even get you some pickups. There's a lot of ways to approach each of the different encounters, whether it's a boss fight or not. You're pressured just enough to think about your different ammo types as resources without actually running out of ammo across all types. In general, I often find bosses in shooters to be disappointing because of how bullet spongy they feel, so this was refreshing in comparison. And so, if I had to sum up the combat in Doom, it's about shooting, not hiding. and everything from the glory kills and the chainsaw to the boss battles play into this to a spectacular degree. But alright, I've spent a good bit of time talking about the combat, but I haven't talked too much about the guns. What can you use? You start the game with a pistol. After that, you get the combat shotgun, heavy assault rifle, rocket launcher, plasma rifle, super shotgun, Gauss cannon, and chain gun. Plus, towards the end of the game, you can even acquire and fire the BFG. Now, some weapons share ammo types, meaning you can either swap between the weapons or use the augment system, which you get by interacting with these little drones, to upgrade them and customize them for different purposes. For example, I tended to use the Gauss cannon over the plasma rifle, because the Gauss cannon hit really hard, and the plasma rifle felt like it just did the same stuff as my other guns. But I would frequently swap between the chain gun and the heavy assault rifle. I like the chain gun in the mobile turret mode, whereas the heavy assault rifle I kind of swapped between the rocket mode, because it was fun to have a mini rocket launcher that didn't cause explosions that damaged me at close range, and the more precise scope mode where I could actually aim at demons' heads from a safe distance and, click heads, proper shooter style. And if you want to get more weapon upgrades, just look for another drone. Eventually, you'll be able to find all of them, thus unlocking all weapon upgrades. Then you can use some of the points you earn by killing demons to unlock additional upgrades, basically making these customizations better. After you get all the unlocks, you complete the mastery task, which, spoiler alert, means killing demons in a certain way to gain that effect too. Like for the mini rockets on the heavy assault rifle, you turn it into a full-on light rocket launcher. Your suit upgrades and Argent cells are pretty simple as well, to the point where I just grabbed whatever I wanted in the moment, so I could get back to killing demons without having to think about, will I need this resource later, because by the time I got to later, I'd have more resources to take more points. And again, you can always replay missions, go back, look for chips you missed, drones, cells, anything like that, and eventually you do unlock everything. And all of this perfectly fits with the vibe of Doom, which is all about getting into the fights, staying in the action, and not spending time reading or in menus. Now, I'll be honest, while the game did have a few cutscenes, I didn't pay very much attention to the story. My attitude was quite similar to the Doomslayer himself, of just wanting to smash all the consoles, ignore the annoying voices trying to chatter over comms, and get back to fighting the demons. And luckily, the cutscenes are both quite short and relevant to what you're doing immediately at the time. The game also has a very fun anti-corporate undertone, where throughout the game you find these little corporate messaging holograms, peddling you some bullshit about how great the company is and how important all the work is, and thank you so much, your job really does matter. Don't think the Doomslayer cared much about it, but I certainly appreciated the irony coming across these holograms shouting their message of zombified workers and literal demons.
But we can't do it alone. It takes a team to make it happen. A team of people full of energy, potential energy. Unleash your potential with the UAC. Thank you for your interest in Argent Energy.
And then there's the music, which, the soundtrack for Doom is already pretty famous. One thing I really liked is when you're just walking around, it's pretty subtle. Music playing softly in the background that often you don't even notice. Once you get into combat and start shooting demons, the music rises and you know it's time to rip and tear. I guess there's a reason why the soundtrack's so legendary, not just because the songs are bangers, but because they fit so naturally with the gameplay. I mean, come on, if I was the Doomslayer walking around blasting demons, I'm sure somehow these tracks would just magically be manifesting themselves from invisible speakers all around me. Now, there was one thing about the game that caught me by surprise, though ultimately it wasn't unwelcome. That is the platforming elements. I wasn't expecting those. Most of the time, combat is spent in an arena shooting demons, so relatively small area, and your jumping is to get around. You don't have to worry about falling off of edges or anything like that. But the way you get to that arena is either by going through narrow corridors, or most of the time jumping between platforms, up ledges, in vents, and the like. The platforming sections, therefore, provide a nice break from the intense action of the arena combat sequences. So quite often, as soon as I complete an arena, I'd be like, now is a good time to explore. I'd explore for a bit, and I'd go, actually, I kind of want to shoot some more demons. Sure enough, it'd be another arena. It's a pretty darn good balance. And if you're looking for where to go next, just look up and also look for the green lights. Now, personally, I didn't spend that much time looking around and exploring just to find stuff, but each level does have secrets if you're into that. You can also get a bunch of different runes. They have a small combat effect, stuff like more ammo. To get the rune, you have to do a challenge. Basically, shoot a bunch of demons in a specific way with a specific gun. And you can retry as many times as you want if you fail the timer. Also, in addition to the secrets, there are fun little Easter eggs, like a Doom-themed Match 3 game that you can play on one of the computers, which of course begs the question of, can you play original Doom in Doom 2016? Unfortunately, the devs missed a perfect opportunity. But thanks to modders, yes, you can. And no, I didn't try the mod, but hey, if that's your jam, go for it. And so what's the verdict? Do I recommend Doom? Well, first off, the game doesn't waste your time with endless cutscenes or tutorials. Instead, it gets you right into the action, which is what you're there for. Second of all, the Doom guy isn't here to listen to corporate scientists go blah blah, and neither was I. Normally when I play shooters, I find myself getting bored as I duck behind cover and get stuck in cutscenes. But Doom instead incentivizes you to get close to the demons, execute glory kills, recover health, and doesn't have very many cutscenes. Plus, there aren't too many situations where the demons are just going to gun you down in the open, so quite often, literally running at them while shooting is perfectly viable. Now the game has 8 different weapons, and if you ever run out of ammo, just grab your chainsaw, cut through the nearest demon. Plus the power-ups are fun, you can pick up things like quad damage, or go berserk and just smash all the demons with your fists. Weapon customization and mastery system makes it feel like you have a few different options without getting in the way. So it was nice to come across a drone from time to time and get an upgrade, but I wasn't spending a ton of time getting bogged down by menus. And so yeah, whether you're big into shooters or not, Doom's a timeless game that's absolutely worth checking out, especially if you can pick it up on sale for $2. And so those are my thoughts on Doom 2016. But I am curious about something. What's a game that you played and enjoyed from a genre that you don't normally play or enjoy? Leave some of yours down in the comments below because I'm curious what other games appeal to people outside of their normal genre. Now I know this video ended up coming out pretty late relative to the launch of Doom the Dark Ages, but I did originally record it and kind of planned to release it for Doom the Dark Ages. Got the idea when I saw the game on sale, and you know what? I had a really good time, so no regrets about playing Doom 2016. But I'm probably not going to be playing Doom Eternal or Doom the Dark Ages, at least for now. But hey, never say never, because this was quite fun. With that said, whenever I do play the next Doom game, and I do think at some point I will, it's going to be cool for me to look back on this video and see if my thoughts are the same or if they've changed in the time since. And so with that said, thank you very much for watching to the end. I'm glad you enjoyed. Remember to leave a like for the YouTube algorithm gods, and I'll see you in the next one.